Facebook, YouTube, the App Store, and online. Sitting across from me is Bishop Dwayne David Royster.
And sitting across from me is the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler.
And holding it all down there at the studio is Kawesa. And we've got a lot to talk about on today. Once our Facebook Live gets up, if you are one of those listeners, hit the share button and share this out with your friends and with your family. Bring others into this conversation on today. Looks like we are already up there, so that's great. And got a big guest coming on today. You know, we don't do guests as often as either of us do on other radio platforms because we only have an hour to get a lot of conversation in. But on today, we thought it necessary to bring someone in who lived through the traumatic events of yesterday. He was actually in the House chamber. He represents Philadelphia. Congressman Dwight Evans will be on with us at 6:20 this morning to share his account of what happened and, more importantly, what happens next. And if you don't know what happened, you know, if you happen to be one of those people who just, you were under a rock all day yesterday and for some reason you just don't know, just turn on any TV. This is one of those days. You remember 9/11, that tragic day? I don't know how you were told, but like, I remember when I got the call, Leslie was working in TV then, it was like, turn on the TV. Like, what channel? It doesn't matter. It's that kind of day. Just turn on the TV. Trust me, if you turn your TV on, you will see what's going on. It was that kind of day yesterday as protesters turned into an angry mob, turned into insurrectionists. It was kind of in that order. Showed up to exercise their First Amendment right. It's your right to believe a lie. If you believe the lie that the election was stolen, that is your right. It's your right to show up and protest, to show up, to turn up. The two of us are not going to be hypocrites. We've done it plenty of times. Absolutely. But there is a moment where protesters can turn into a mob. We have seen it. And then protesters who turned into a mob can turn into something else. That's right. And what we saw yesterday is a group that was insurrection. That's that right. When your attempt is to overturn the will of the people in this country and to install your own leader of your choosing because your opinion is this is not right, not the facts. The facts do not support you. The facts don't bear you out. If you listen to any of those protesters yesterday, none of them can give you an intelligent sentence about why Trump should be president. They just simply say, because y'all know what happened. No, we don't know what happened. So yesterday was an attempt to overturn your will. Those of you who are listening in Pennsylvania, if you voted for Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump, it was an attempt to throw your vote out. That is an act of insurrection and should be treated as such. And so that's what we witnessed on yesterday. A lot to unpack about it. But how did you sleep last night, and how are you processing this moment?
So I haven't really been asleep, so I'm dragging a little bit right now. I actually went to bed, was watching the television, and I think I fell asleep for about 2 hours, woke back up around 1 something, and turned on C-SPAN so I could watch most of it. As a matter of fact, I think I just missed Congressman Evans speaking on the floor of the House while they were debating the objection to the electoral ballots being cast in Pennsylvania, but I did catch a couple of our other representatives, including Representative Connor Lamb speaking, and then watched at around 3:38, 3:39 when it was finally announced that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would be the president and vice president-elect officially and certified the vote. So I have to say, shout out to the U.S. Senate chaplain, Barry Black, who did an incredible prayer at the end that really just called out this whole thing for what it was and called the president out. Didn't call him quite by name, but everybody knew who he was talking about in this particular moment. So I haven't really, yesterday was totally discombobulated. I had a whole plan of things I needed to get done yesterday and wound up spending the day first watching television just in disbelief and then organizing a prayer service for last night and actions around this issue when democracy is under attack. It's been hard to watch. Imagining, I told somebody yesterday, I'm like, I always wondered years ago what it would be like to grow up in the civil rights movement and all the things that I would do at that time frame. And I recognize now that this time that we're living in with COVID, with the racial justice uprisings, with the insurrection that we experience today, these days will be written about in history books. And people will ask us the question, what did we do during that time frame? How did we show up? How did we stand up for democracy, stand up for our rights of our fellow citizens? How did we make sure that the vote was not taken away from us and that people were not disenfranchised? How did we stand up to this is called out for what it is, the white supremacy that's rearing its ugly head in a very deep way? How are we going to stand up and defend and fight I mean, America was never a perfect country, never has been a perfect union. But how are we going to fight to make it a better and more perfect union? And so that's the work that, I think we're doing with Power, with other organizations that we're affiliated with about creating a better country, using our faith as a vehicle to speak truth to power and call it out for what it is unashamedly, and calling for transformation and change in our country. So, yeah, I haven't slept much and just deeply disturbed, angry, frustrated, and just dismayed. And furthermore, just dismayed that even last night there was still a fight about Pennsylvania, that they continued to debate about Arizona, that they challenged the results from Wisconsin, but that there was no senator that was willing to stand with the representatives, 70 representatives in the House that wanted to challenge the vote in Wisconsin. It just seemed to me at this moment in time that if you really want, and everybody got up and talked about the Capitol Police and the Secret Service and everybody that was out there, I got you. But if you really want to heal the nation and you put all this stuff away and you say, okay, look, we recognize all this stuff was a falsehood, we need to move forward. I think one of the most frustrating things that I experienced yesterday was the constant pointing out that it was the state legislatures that get to make the decision about the electors. But the state legislatures make decisions about the laws in terms of how the election is done. And the debate around Pennsylvania revolved around Act 77, which was passed a couple of years ago, that was enthusiastically endorsed by the Republicans, right? They were all on board with Act 77, the changes in the election law, because they thought it would benefit them. And now that they discovered that it actually benefited the Democrats, now there are many of them that are complaining, jumping up and down, saying, oh, this law is unconstitutional. These very same ones that were enthusiastic, that they have written speeches about how great this would be in extending democracy in the state of Pennsylvania, are now the very ones that are jumping up and down and saying that Act 77 is unconstitutional, that it should be stricken down, that the state legislature should make the decision about these electives. The state legislature makes decisions about laws. And so we need to understand that first and foremost. They made a law. It was called Act 77. It talked about how we could participate in the vote in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, what happens in these circumstances if there's questions about the law that is written by a state legislature? Then it is challenged in a court. And so there were challenges to the law, and it was a decision by the court in terms of what had to be done. Now, at that point, if the legislature did not like what the court said, they could go back and change the law. The law has not been changed. Therefore, anything anybody got up and said was absolutely ridiculous about Act 77 and the state legislature not making decisions. The legislature decided how the vote was going to be done in Pennsylvania. They passed a law about voting in Pennsylvania called Act 77. It was done by an act of the legislature. It was interpreted by both the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court in terms of decisions that are made that basically said this follows along with the Pennsylvania Constitution. It is a viable law. So that was, frustrating. I'm sorry. I'm going on a rant this morning because I'm just in that space.
Yeah, well, this is a rantable moment. And we actually have Congressman Evans on a little early, so let's go to him right now. Folks, we have Congressman Dwight Evans, who represents the state of Pennsylvania, who was in the chamber on yesterday when all hell broke loose. That's not hyperbole. And Congressman Evans, welcome to the Power Hour. It's Mark Tyler and Bishop Dwayne Royster on. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning to both of you. Thank you for this invitation this morning.
Yeah, so Congressman, let's talk about just the experience yesterday. I mean, can you tell us, like, where were you when you all got a sense that something was not right and the chambers had to be cleared? Because that part to a lot of us is not as clear. We saw a lot of what was going on the outside with, this mob turned insurrectionist group trying to get into where you were. But what was your experience?
The experience was one of shock and disbelief that it could happen at the Capitol. You couldn't think that something like this could happen, and you figured that it would be taken care of. So it was one of shocking experience. You know, in my 4 years of being here, obviously I've never seen that could occur, because when you look at from the standpoint of the security that is around, but you understand why it's there. But the fact of the matter, you thought that this would have been taken care of and paid attention. So the part of it is, although I was there, I had moved back to I've been back in my office, which was in the Logan building, because basically we had been forewarned to stay in our particular location, which was our office, because you know the way the Capitol is organized, the Longworth building, there's the Longworth building, there's the Rayburn building, there's the Cannon building, which are right across the street from the Capitol. And basically, in order to go to the Capitol, it's suggesting you should go underground to get to the Capitol, which is the normal process to go, unless you choose that you want to walk outside. So the part of it is what was happening is, as this incident was occurring, it was, again, you was really shocked that this was occurring in the Capitol, and it just seemed like it was completely out of control. And basically, most of the items that was taking place was happening at the Capitol, and you was watching it from TV in your office location.
So I saw that they actually got into Speaker Pelosi's office, one of these seditionists, and he's sitting there posing, taking a picture after they ransacked her office. He's got his feet up on the desk, leaning back. And is that near where your office? Did people get into offices near you or into your office?
That is where her office is located. It's right as you walk on the ground of the Capitol. So it's in the Capitol. So you figure that's where basically the mob effect had taken control of that particular location. They were walking all around that particular location, and it was, again, rather shocking with what was taking place around you. You were sort of stunned that all of this was occurring, and the fact that the Capitol Police had been overwhelmed and didn't have the normal kind of police protection that is normally there. The fact is, as I said, there needs to be a type of investigation, find out what happened, why did that happen. It was just that they were there, and there was not much they could do. So what I'm saying to you, they had literally taken over the Capitol. In the Logan building, you wouldn't say the Longworth building. They weren't there at the Longworth building where I was located. I was across the street from it. So I'm not in the Capitol. And the Capitol where the Capitol, the House, and the Senate is, statutory hall was located. So they literally had taken over the aspect of the ground. And again, most people would get completely shocked by the presence that they were able to so easily be able to just take over the building.
So listen, we got to go to a commercial in just a moment. So I don't know if we want to open this question up, but when we come back, if you can talk about legislation that you said you're going to co-sponsor, incoming Congresswoman Cori Bush from St. Louis, who came out of the Black Lives Matter movement there out of Ferguson, obviously is feeling some kind of way about this, because one of the big things that's been talked about, we haven't even hit on yet on this show, is the difference in the way that people were treated yesterday by the law enforcement and the way that Black Lives Matter and other protesters have been treated in the wake of high-profile killings of unarmed Black people. But she is putting forth a bill about, I guess, expelling members of Congress and not seating them who were a part of, fermenting the atmosphere that would even cause this to be possible. And you said that you're going to co-sign that. So when we come back on the other side of the break, we want to hear your thoughts on that and what that law is about. This is the Power Hour. Man, I tell you, this is a day unlike any other days. And I know every day in the Trump administration we say that, but today it feels like we've really crossed a new place. Bishop Dwayne David Royster, myself, Mark Kelly Tyler, sitting on the phone with Congressman Dwight Evans from Pennsylvania. We'll get his thoughts on this and more. We'll be right back on the other side.
Happy New Year, Philly. It's Solomon Jones. The pandemic of 2020 blew the roof off of life as we know it and forced us to make radical decisions once thought impossible. Many parents and grandparents turned to the option of a public cyber education. In thousands of instances, they sought assistance from the one true pioneer and industry leader in public cyber education, Commonwealth Charter Academy. Visit ccaeducate.me and exercise your right to choose a safe, hassle-free, student-focused learning environment your kids deserve. CCA delivers elite online instruction streamed directly to the safety and comfort of your living room. They provide a laptop and headset along with internet connectivity that includes financial assistance, all at no cost to families. CCA has been the gold standard in school choice for nearly 20 years. Visit ccaeducate.me and ring in 2021 with a 5-star learning experience. Again, that's ccaeducate.me.
This message is from the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. COVID-19 is still a threat in our communities, but we can all do something simple to help stop the spread. It's critically important to wear a mask or face covering whenever you're in public or around others. Yes, even while social distancing. Wearing a mask shows you care for yourself and your community and is essential to slowing the spread of COVID-19. So love yourself, love your neighbors, wear a mask.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
Undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler. We're here Monday through Fridays from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news happenings around Philadelphia and, of course, our opinion. This morning we're joined by Congressman Dwight Evans of the city of Philadelphia, who is talking about what happened yesterday. And before we get back to Congressman Evans, just want to say very clearly that there is deep disparity in terms of the way black folk would have been treated had that been them, and way white folk were treated and the way they were just able to take over the Capitol yesterday. There were more police and National Guard in Philadelphia during the uprisings than there were at the Capitol yesterday, and they knew what was going on. This is like the third time we get caught with our pants down, not prepared to deal with the realities that are in front of us. We watched this on 9/11 when they had information and didn't follow through on it, and now this happens again to us during this day when people were prepared, and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser had asked for the National Guard a week ago and was denied the National Guard coming in to help out. So let's get back to Congressman Evans. Dr. Tyler, you had a question on the table, so I know we want to get back to that, and I got a couple myself.
Yes, sir. So can you talk about the Cori Bush legislation?
No question. The Congresswoman's legislation is definitely moving in the right direction. And the reason I say that is, though I was not around when when the policing of the Black Lives Matter situation occurred at the time, there was no question you could see the treatment of the enforcement aspect was definitely different. You could see the way it was conducted, the way it was handled. The fact of the matter is, just the whole policing element was completely different. So there's no question that I felt, based on her initiative and what she was attempting to do, was to join in, because the fact of the matter is, there should have been better enforcement. As you raised the question about the mayor, too, in terms of I think what I sense is that everybody was caught off guard. I think it was shocking as anyone to be in that particular position and not have the treatment and enforcement that was necessary. So there's no question that from the perspective of Black Lives Matter situation, there was no question it was a difference in treatment being on the spot. So I think that's what was so shocking about it, just how that from just being here. I mean, just being here, you just never thought, from an enforcement standpoint, that it was so loosely handled and almost no enforcement at all, just because these individuals were supportive of the President of the United States, and that they was able to basically kind of walk around like it was a picnic all throughout the Capitol. As I said to you earlier, it was almost as if they had just literally taken the entire Capitol off, and then you had I think a senator who was walking around giving power fists to the protesters. A senator, I think he's from Missouri, as he walked through and giving a protest. I mean, I only saw that from what I saw that was taken by the media. But again, remember, I said to you, which gave me a different view, because I was sitting in the onWURD building, so I was able to observe most of those things as the pictures outside was taking place. So I wasn't in the immediacy of what had taken place. I just knew that it was wrong, and the reason why that I needed to join with the Congresswoman's bill.
Congressman, thank you for that, explaining that to us. I have some questions for you. So I actually just missed you on C-SPAN this morning when you were speaking on the floor during the objection to Pennsylvania's electoral ballots being cast, and I know you were fighting against the objection. And so appreciate that, because we appreciate those that keep us franchised here in the state of Pennsylvania. But Mike, the big debate, from what I could tell, was the issue around Act 77. And there were a lot of people that were questioning the validity of it. We know Act 77 was passed in the State House and the State Senate. It was actually endorsed by Republican leadership. I mean, nothing can get through the PA House and Senate without the Republicans being on board with it. And there were actually Republican congresspeople from Pennsylvania that were fighting against it. Could you talk a little bit more about that and what their bone of contention is with Act 77?
I'm glad you raised this, Bishop. They almost tried to give the view that this was a Democratic-inspired piece of legislation. And as you just said, it's the fact of the matter, it was driven by, as you say, the House of Representatives, Pennsylvania House, is directed by Republicans in the House and in the Senate, and that the Senate, the vast majority of it was bipartisan, but the Republicans led the legislation in terms of the vote by mail. And it was strange that you would have thought the way that the Republicans, another branch of government in Congress, was fundamentally blaming the Democrats. That was an initiative driven by the Republicans. And it was very clear that this was like an internal fight of the Republicans in terms of the way this was handled. And it was not, quote unquote, the Democrats that was in the middle of it and starting this particular initiative. So it was clear that the accountability that you're describing and where the blame and responsibility is could be by the Democrats, and that the legislation that was passed, the fact is, it was Republican. It was Republican at the end of the day. It just didn't turn out the way the Republicans thought it would turn out in terms of the election. They were very disappointed in terms of the outcome, particularly how the outcome had the effect on the November election. That was the fundamental problem. Now, if it would have gone the way they wanted to go, and it would have helped the president win the state of Pennsylvania, they wouldn't have probably had any noise at all. So again, it seems like the situation in both ways, in terms of the enforcement around security failures, right, around the Capitol, and then turn around and mix this together with the enforcement around the voting. In both cases, it didn't come out the way they wanted to. So they then, in turn, turned around and was blaming Democrats, Black Lives Matter, anybody they could blame, they thought they could blame and get away with it, but they were caught. They was exposed in the first place, because even coming to the Capitol, you would not have that kind of access. You just move around there without the part of the policing aspect of it. So it backfired on all of them, and particularly Trump, his administration, and just of how it was handled.
Yeah, well, Congressman, listen. First of all, we know that you got other media hits to do this morning, and we know that you've been up all night like us. So we appreciate you coming in. But let me just say what the two of you are like just being very nice about. I mean, Act 77 was signed into law October of 2019. And up until that point, Republicans nationwide had an advantage in mail-in voting. Nobody saw COVID-19 coming. And after COVID-19 and black folks said our health is more important to us, we will mail our ballots in and drop them in drop boxes. And that changed the calculus of what mail-in voting looks like. Nobody in the GOP likes mail-in voting now because it works too well for black folk. So I fully expect a lot of these things to be repealed, but I'll say it so you don't have to, sir.
No, you couldn't have summed it up better. It turned around backfire, because you may recall the Democrats, though I was not in the General Assembly at that time, and I had been up there many years, the Democrats had taken a position where they were against the legislation, and the Democrats had to be convinced to be for the legislation. All of the Republicans were for it. So you described it just correct. It was viewed as something, quote unquote, that was a giveaway. But you're absolutely right. No one envisioned, because of the virus, that all of a sudden the Democrats had basically taken advantage and fully utilized it. So you had a situation where these votes was banked by the Democratic constituency, which in return led up to the advantage that the Democrats could do it from a safety perspective. They had an element of being safe. So you're right. It turned around and been rather beneficial of the African American community, I say that rather clearly, of taking advantage of that situation. So you're right. That backfired completely, and that President-elect Biden won Pennsylvania by 81,000 votes. And recognizing that in 2016 that Trump had won Pennsylvania by 44,000. So it was a reversal in 2020 versus in 2016. That was the difference in that period of time between 2016 and 2020. of the 44,000 that Hillary Clinton had lost the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania had not lost to a Republican since about 1988, which was the first George Bush. So just because with this policy change, which was directed by Republicans in the House and in the Senate, they felt that the Republicans all of a sudden thought there was some act on the part of African Americans that they themselves had taken advantage of a policy, which the fact of the matter is Democrats was not in charge of the General Assembly, and black people couldn't take advantage of the act, and how could they have done it? They wasn't in charge.
Right. All right. Well, listen, Congressman, we know that you all have a busy day down there. We're going to continue to be watching what's happening in D.C. and want to get you back on sometime before or shortly after the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as well. And you all be safe down there. I know we always say that, but I mean, literally in this case, you know, keep your head on the swivel.
Thank you. Take care of yourself. Thank you both.
All right. That's Congressman Dwight Evans. So fortunately for him, he was not in the chamber yesterday. But, man, you know, we haven't even talked about some of this stuff. There was a pipe bomb that was left at the headquarters of the Republican National Committee yesterday.
There was one at the DNC and one at the RNC.
Well, I saw there was a package. They weren't sure at that time, the last time I looked. So, but, you know, one of the fascinating things about this, and I don't mean fascinating in a good way, but, you know, which is really astonishing, is listening to the people they were just randomly selecting. They have now turned their fire against both Democrats and Republicans and are viewing the Republican Party as a part of the problem as well, which makes them even more dangerous at this point because nobody can rein them in except one person.
Yeah. But I mean, this is my problem. When Donald Trump says that he's going to do something crazy, not when he says he's going to do something reasonable, when he says he's going to do something crazy, you have to believe him. He said that he was going to bring these folk here to D.C. and that they were going to have to stand up and fight for him. Did he not? He's been saying it for months. He said, my people are not going to let this go down. My people, there will be a war in this country. He said all kinds of crazy stuff like this. And yesterday, when this was all taking place, Donald Trump said nothing. He sat on his, I guess he must have just been looking at his phone or looking at TV, but he wasn't on his phone on Twitter saying anything. And it's my understanding that there were White House aides, including several that have now quit because they were frustrated, that they are now, they've quit, and that people were frustrated because they had to convince him to say something to get these people to stop. He was okay with this. He was absolutely okay with this. And even when he finally made a statement, he continued to spout his false conspiracy theories while he was telling his people to go home or to stop the rioting. That's ridiculous.
Well, this is why, I mean, so listen, all right. Yesterday we hit a point where, so the Republicans basically, what we could say to them is, welcome to our world. This is what we have been living for 4 years. If you're black, if you're Mexican, if you are of South American descent of any nation, if you are Muslim, who, you know, all of these groups that have taken Donald Trump's fire and the fire from his minions, right? So now it's coming to you and on your doorstep, and it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. Dude, we've been living crazy for 4 years. Absolutely. And so you have emboldened this. Now, the only way to stop this is to either invoke the 25th Amendment, and Mike Pence yesterday, to his credit, he actually, you know, I think what triggered this was he submitted a letter, a 3-page letter at 1 o'clock, an hour and a half or so before this jumped off, that said, I am not going to do Donald Trump's bidding. There is nothing in the Constitution that says I can do this. I'm here to certify, to read, and report, and that is it. And I think that's what triggered this when Trump realized he had nothing else, and they sent the folk in. So people are saying to Pence, look, you already burned the bridge. Invoke the 25th Amendment. You can get the majority of the cabinet behind you, pull him out. If not, then they need to draw up articles of impeachment in the House today. That will pass the House, we know this. Take it to the Senate. And you got to think, you know.
Next week they can take it to the Senate and probably pass.
That's what I'm saying. So, but if you don't do one of those two things, then you leave the door open for Donald Trump to hang in the air for another 4 years in the minds of his, these sycophants, that he can possibly be president again. And does anybody really want that? You have got to take away any hope that they have that he will ever be president again. And the only way to do that is to either take him out of office with the 25th Amendment or to impeach him and let it be sustained by the Senate. They've got to do this.
Yeah. A couple things. I mean, actually, I was listening to ABC News, and Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago, former chief of staff to President Barack Obama, was saying that they could at least do a quick censure, which would be a moral piece. That would be helpful. But I agree, we need to prevent him from any chance of being able to serve as president of the United States again. This was egregious. This was inciting sedition, inciting insurrection, and basically he betrayed the nation by his actions on yesterday. And not that he hasn't betrayed the nation on numerous times prior to this. I mean, let me also just say, a lot of people were applauding Pence about his statement yesterday, the whole 9 yards. Mike Pence is as responsible for this as anybody else is, right? He's on the inside. He's been propping this guy up. And then finally, 14 days before they are no longer going to be in office together, he finally gets a backbone. I'm sorry. I have a real problem with this. The other piece that I'm really pissed off about with all this, let me just say this, and I know you want to jump in there.
No.
We should be celebrating Raphael Warnock and Joe Ossoff in Georgia winning the Senate seats. That's what we should be talking about today. We should be talking about a new Senate that we're going to have, that Chuck Schumer will be the majority leader, that we're going to be able to hopefully get some legislation that's passed and changing and correct some of the stuff that's happened the last 4 years. But unfortunately, because there were thousands of sick individuals that decided to make their way to be able to worship their God, because they had posted up on this Capitol steps, Jesus saves, and what they really meant was Trump saves. They weren't flying American flags, they were flying Trump flags. That we're here having to deal with this today. And there are families out there. It wasn't just, there was one woman killed, and then there were 3 other people that had medical emergencies that wound up dying in this event as well. So 4 people are dead as a result of what has happened in all of this. And we are here having to spend time unpacking this morning because of the insanity of one man who decided that he wanted to be a cult leader.
Yeah. All I was going to say is, bro, continue on. We got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation, and there are a few other points that we got to touch on. As you said again, the Senate is now in the control of the Democrats, with John Ossoff being declared the winner as all this was unfolding. And so there is a different calculation in D.C. for multiple reasons, not the least of which the incredible job that Georgia did on Tuesday with the special election. This is the Power Hour with Dwayne David Royster and Mark Kelly Tyler. We'll be right back.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
You know that feeling? Like every door is closing and you just can't see a way out? Being unemployed, underemployed, or just out of school can feel like that. But when you find the right tools, suddenly everything just clicks. FindSomethingNew.org offers resources that help develop new skills. Skills that can position you for careers in today's growing industries, from healthcare and manufacturing to cybersecurity and alternative energy. Find your path to a new career at FindSomethingNew.org. A message from the Ad Council.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. Pretty good ride here in Philadelphia so far this Thursday morning. Nice and light, 95 southbound from northeast down through the Vine Expressway. No problems yet through the ongoing construction. Northbound side, that is moving fine as well. No major problems if you're traveling on the Vine Expressway through Center City, Philadelphia. Schuylkill Expressway westbound between South University and 30th Street. You're going to find some slowing through that work zone. Eastbound side looking pretty good. PA Turnpike, Blue Route 476 in pretty good shape this morning. 55 northbound Deptford into 42. So volume there beginning to pick up. Any time of day is Baconator time. Baconate in the AM with the Wendy's Breakfast Baconator. All the bacon you crave with a fresh cracked egg. Try one this AM. Free with any breakfast purchase. Offer in the app. There's never been a better reason to bring on the bacon. Always be baconating. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Clear skies, breezy and cold this morning. The wind is making it feel like it's in the 20s. Bright sunshine today. The wind will still be with us this afternoon. A high of 44 will feel like it's in the upper 30s. The wind dies down tonight, mainly clear overnight, and a cold start to Friday, 28 the low. Sunshine in the morning, extra clouds coming through in the afternoon, but staying dry for Friday, a high of 43. Sunny and breezy on Saturday, up to 41 degrees. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster along with Mark Kelly Tyler. We have been dealing this morning with happenings that in D.C., the insurrection, the sedition, the making of a cult leader yesterday. Donald Trump is no longer president of the United States. He is now the leader of a cult and has a cult following and a cult army that took on the U.S. Congress yesterday after he had a rally with them and told them to go march up the hill and let those people know how they felt about it. Now, I'm sure he's going to claim that he didn't tell them to do that, but, you know, he's notorious for his dog whistles and calling people out and letting them know what he expects of them and if they're going to be loyal followers. And so we're now in this sad day. You know, it was a sad day, an embarrassing day for the United States on yesterday. We have lost all our moral authority and integrity as the leading democracy in this country when we watched what happened on yesterday.
Well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of this, if you heard any of the people yesterday out there, they were pretty, when you talk about drinking the Kool-Aid, that's an understatement. So a lot of the media were asking just regular folk, why are you in here? Why are you doing this? Because they stole it. Okay, so explain to me what that means. You know what it means. You know what it means. So, you know, so logic is gone. And so it's no point in trying to be rational. I've just seen a post of a person who was there yesterday, a MAGA supporter, who is saying that I was there, don't believe the media. It was Antifa that broke into the Capitol. This and it's been shared over 200 and almost 250 times, and people are saying, you know what, we knew that's what it was. Bro, are your eyes lying to you now? Did you see anyone that was dressed in all black looking like Antifa? Antifa is now rocking Trump flags around them like it's, you know, a dress or a skirt. No, it was not Antifa. So even when they do stuff, they won't own it, right? I mean, and then let's not even get to the absolute double standard here. Now, unless everybody that they can find on camera and hunt them down is not taken before the court and charged with federal charges. In Philadelphia, Anthony Smith, an activist, was arrested for allegedly setting fire to a police car and was given federal charges, though it was city property. You know how he got federal charges? Because William McSwain, the U.S. attorney, charged him by setting fire to a piece of property that receives money from the federal government. So Ant and two other people charged with federal crimes with a minimum sentence of 7 years. Activist Nancy Ewan from Philadelphia, who's over Viet Lead, was hanging up protest materials on the front yard of the director of ICE in Virginia. They hunted her down at her house and arrested her for littering and trespass, and we're going to charge her with, you know, with like felonies. In Louisville, Daniel Cameron, the state attorney general, was charging over 80 protesters who showed up on his lawn to sit there to demonstrate for the murder of Breonna Taylor. And this black man charged them with felonies. And now we're going to say that these are just, I guess, kids being kids. These grown people who stormed into the federal government and stopped the most sacred act that we have as a nation, the orderly transfer of power from one to the next. If they do not receive that and more, I'm telling you, and don't ever come talk to me about anything else.
They only arrested 52 people.
They didn't arrest hardly anybody that was in the Capitol. The 52, the
right,
majority,
we're outside. Yeah.
The majority of them were arrested for breaking the curfew after 6 o'clock.
That's right. So there's thousands of folk that were streaming through the Capitol and they broke into the Senate chamber. Were sitting in the seat of the president of the Senate. Right? Jeez. They broke into Nancy Pelosi's office. We're sitting in Nancy Pelosi's office. They were just walking through, getting pounds from some of the political leaders. Matter of fact, I saw the cops giving a pound to a few folk while I was watching on C-SPAN. Yeah. And I'm like, this is how y'all got in here. But, I don't want, it's not guaranteed that that's how they got in. But I'm saying, who let them in? The building was locked down. Who let them in?
Well, listen, I mean, they were not prepared. As we said, if you saw the way that the city was prepared for Black Lives Matter protesters, which, I guess they thought they were going to do the same thing. There were hundreds of, armed police and National Guard in place. I mean, I was thinking of the movie Olympus Has Fallen. Yeah. And I'm thinking in Olympus Has Fallen, the North Korean plot in this fictional film, they go through this elaborate scheme to get into the White House with all kind of trickery to break in. I'm like, hell, all you need was just apparently a group of white folk in MAGA hats. Because they can go wherever they want.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I have been tear gassed for just standing on a corner, doing nothing.
That's right. In West Philly.
2020. In West Philly, with a group of preachers and others just standing there doing nothing, nowhere near anything. I've been tear gassed in Ferguson for just walking down the street.
Yep.
And you mean to tell me that you can run into the Capitol of the United States where all of our lawmakers are seated? The Vice President of the United States is in the room, and you can just get into the building? I mean, are you kidding me? Dude, it is harder for us to even get 2 blocks from the police department in Philadelphia when we want to protest.
That's right.
This is, oh my God. Man, I need some pressure medicine.
I'm gonna go pop those pills as soon as we get done here. Get that blood pressure down today. I hear you on this, and this is just an absolute travesty. And I am, as one who actually often is in the streets, right? You and I got arrested together at the airport before the DNC convention when we were fighting for rights for workers at the airport to be able to get their wages increased. There was more action at the airport when we did that than there was in the Capitol yesterday. So travesty.
So I've been saying this one thing repeatedly, and that is the Republican Party. The leadership of the Republican Party, the Mitch McConnells of the world, the Kevin McCarthy's of the world, will never depart from Donald Trump until they have to pay. Yesterday, they had to pay. And yesterday was I don't care what anybody says, it is a turning point, right? Because he's already thrown them under the bus. And so his sycophants are already turning on them. And now they got to pay. They're going to have a real reckoning within their own party, because I don't know where they go. Frankly, I don't really care what happens to them. And I don't really want to hear any Republican getting up, making these tearful speeches about how unjust this is, because you are the enabler. Unless your name is Mitt Romney, I don't want to hear from you. Because he is about the only one, and he's been flip-flopping, but for the most part, he has been the only one willing to call Donald Trump on his crap. And the rest of them felt that it was more important to get a Supreme Court seat, more important to get federal judges, more important to get a tax cut. And so they went along with Donald Trump, and they knew they made a deal with the devil. And now you are paying the price for it. So save your tears for somebody who actually cares.
Well, I mean, I forgot who said it online, but the chickens have come home to roost, right?
Yeah.
You know, to quote Jeremiah Wright.
And Malcolm X.
And Malcolm X, right? Chickens have come home to roost. God damn America! This is the deep tragedy of what happens when you vote the wrong person into office. If anybody ever says you voting doesn't matter again, slap them, please. Just let them know voting matters. It mattered in 2016, and now we are still reaping the repercussions of the fact that folk didn't want to vote in 2016, and it's playing out today on us, and will play out for the next 30 years because the courts have been packed with his people. So just saying that to folk. All right, well, we're out of time. Thank you, everybody, for checking in with us today. We deeply appreciate you listening to the Power Hour. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest news happenings around Philadelphia and, of course, our opinions. We invite you to stay tuned with Wake Up with Word. Thank you, Kwesa, for holding it down on the board today. I know a lot going on. Stay tuned for Wake Up with Word with Solomon Jones. Listen, folk, listen to me very clearly. Go out, change the damn world, because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.